Have you ever felt the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on you after someone embarrassed you in front of everyone? That moment when your chest tightens, your face burns, and no matter how hard you try to stay calm, you can feel the ground begging to swallow you whole. It feels like the air has been stolen from your lungs, and the world has suddenly turned hostile. That sting doesn't fade quickly. It lingers, it echoes long after the moment is over, and deep inside it whispers questions you don't want to face. Am I not good enough? Did I deserve that? Will people ever see me the same again? Humiliation cuts deeper than most wounds because it doesn't just touch the surface. It strikes at identity, pride, and dignity. Unlike a private insult, when it happens in front of others, the shame multiplies. You don't just feel attacked by one person. You feel judged by everyone who witnessed it. It is one of the most isolating feelings a human can experience, because suddenly you are not only battling your own pain, but also carrying the imagined thoughts and opinions of a crowd. And the truth is, humiliation has a way of replaying in your mind like a film on repeat, over and over, long after others have forgotten. But here's what most people never realize. If you've been humiliated, you are not weak. In fact, you have experienced something that almost every great achiever, every strong leader, every unshakable human being has faced at some point in their journey. Being humiliated means you have walked into the arena of life, and when you step into the arena, you will always face critics. No one is humiliated for doing nothing. It only happens when you are seen, when your presence is felt, when your existence challenges someone else's comfort. That pain you feel is not a sign of your unworthiness. It is proof that you matter. It is proof that you have stirred something powerful enough in the world that someone thought they had to tear it down. And while the moment feels unbearable, there is a reward waiting on the other side of it. The reward is strength, resilience, and a deeper understanding of your own courage. Because if you can endure humiliation and still rise, if you can walk back into the light after being thrown into the shadows, you will carry a kind of confidence that cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed, and cannot be broken. This is why you must stay with me until the end. Because the truth is, there are real reasons people humiliate you. And when you understand those reasons, everything changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of cruelty and start recognizing the smallness of those who try to bring you down. You gain clarity, you regain power, and most importantly, you learn how to turn those moments into the very fuel that pushes you forward. The pain you felt is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a transformation. If you're willing to face it with open eyes, if you're willing to see humiliation for what it truly is, not a prison but a teacher, you will walk away stronger than you've ever been. So stay with me, because what has hurt you can be turned into the reason you rise, and by the end, you will understand exactly why people humiliate you, and how you can use every attempt against you as a stepping stone toward your greatest strength. Humiliation doesn't just hurt your pride, it rewires your mind in ways most people never talk about. When someone cuts you down in public, your brain doesn't process it as a simple insult. It treats it as a threat to survival. That burning in your chest, that pounding in your head, that need to escape, it's not weakness, it's biology. For thousands of years, being cast out or shamed in front of the tribe meant danger. It meant losing protection, losing belonging, losing the very thing your life depended on. That's why humiliation feels heavier than almost anything else. Your mind interprets it as a kind of social death, and it reacts with the same intensity it would if your very existence were on the line. That's why you remember the moment so vividly. That's why your thoughts replay the words, the looks, the silence that followed. Your brain is trying to protect you by never letting you forget. It believes that if you can avoid that pain again, you'll be safer. But here's the truth. What once protected you is now trapping you. Because when you carry humiliation like a scar that never heals, you give more power to those who tried to strip it from you. The wound becomes heavier than the weapon that caused it. But you are not meant to live trapped in that loop. The very fact that you are still here, still listening, still searching for answers, proves you are bigger than what was done to you. Most people never question the weight they carry. They accept the shame, they fold under it, and they allow the memory to define who they are. Not you. You are different. You are standing in the middle of your own battlefield, looking at the enemy, and deciding not to surrender. That choice alone separates you from the countless who never rise again. Psychologists have found that humiliation activates the same parts of the brain as physical pain. But unlike physical wounds, humiliation doesn't fade as quickly. The mind revisits it, relives it, and holds onto it far longer than a cut or bruise. And yet, here is where the power lies. Because if your brain can attach that much energy, that much memory, that much weight to a single moment, then imagine what happens when you redirect that energy toward healing, growth, and resilience. The same fire that once burned you can be the fire that forges you. The reason humiliation can feel like it breaks you is the same reason it can be used to build you. It shakes the foundation of who you believe you are. It strips away illusions, false pride, and shallow confidence. It leaves you bare. And while that feels terrifying, it is also an opportunity few people ever recognize. Because once you are stripped down, once you are forced to face the raw truth of yourself, you have the chance to rebuild with strength that is real, not the kind of confidence that relies on applause or approval, but the kind that comes from knowing you can withstand the hardest hit and still rise. So the next time that memory resurfaces, instead of letting it consume you, let it remind you of your resilience. Let it remind you that you survived the thing your brain said you couldn't. And if you can survive humiliation, you can survive anything what was once meant to weaken you can become the very proof that you are unbreakable. And once you understand that, you no longer fear humiliation. You use it. You rise from it. You own it, because no one, no matter how loud or cruel, can take away the strength you choose to build from it. When someone humiliates you, it is easy to believe the lie that their words or actions define your worth. But humiliation is rarely about you. It is almost always about them. The first and most powerful reason people try to tear you down in front of others is because they are drowning in their own insecurities. They see something in you that reminds them of what they lack. Your confidence, your presence, your effort, even your silence can trigger in them a deep fear that they are not enough. And instead of facing that truth within themselves, they project it outward. They disguise weakness with cruelty, hoping that if they can make you small, they will feel big. This is why humiliation often comes not from strangers, but from people who know you, people who have been near your light long enough to feel their own shadows. They target you because your very existence challenges the lies they tell themselves about who they are. And while the attack feels personal, it is actually proof that you hold something powerful. People do not waste energy trying to break what they do not see as a threat. Understanding this shifts everything. Instead of carrying their words like chains, you begin to see them for what they are, a mirror of another person's inner battles. Their voice is not truth, it is pain disguised as power. Their actions are not reflections of your weakness, they are signs of their fear. When you look at it through this lens, humiliation loses its grip, because how can you be defined by the words of someone who cannot even face their own truth? Psychology calls this projection. When people take what they dislike about themselves and place it onto others, it is easier to attack someone else than to confront your own flaws. And this is why some will go out of their way to ridicule, mock, or belittle you. It isn't strength, it's escape. It's their way of running from the mirror. And you must never let the weight of their escape become the burden you carry. The moment you realize humiliation often comes from insecurity, something powerful happens. You stop shrinking. You stop questioning your worth. Instead, you begin to feel compassion, not the kind that excuses cruelty, but the kind that frees you from believing it has anything to do with you. Because deep down, the person who tries to cut you down is revealing more about themselves than they ever reveal about you. This understanding doesn't erase the sting, but it transforms it. You move from asking, "What's wrong with me?" to asking what's hurting in them that makes them need to hurt others. That shift is liberation. Because the truth is, your value has never been at risk. It cannot be touched by someone else's fear. It cannot be erased by someone else's voice. It can only be hidden temporarily by the shadows of insecurity, but even then, your light remains. So the next time someone tries to humiliate you, remember, their words are not a reflection of your weakness, but of their struggle. Let their attempt be the reminder that you hold something worth noticing, and rather than bowing your head in shame, lift it higher. Because the louder insecurity shouts, the clearer it becomes that you have something they wish they could find within themselves. And that is not a reason to shrink. It is the ultimate reason to stand tall. There is another reason people humiliate you, and it cuts just as deeply as insecurity. Some people humiliate because they crave control. They see the world through a lens of dominance, where worth is measured by who stands tallest and who can push others to their knees. For them, every interaction is a silent contest, and public humiliation becomes their weapon of choice. They believe that if they can make you stumble in front of others, they win. They believe that if they can turn the spotlight from your strength to your shame, they rise higher. But what they don't understand is that control built on humiliation is fragile, and power gained through belittling others is never real power at all. When someone humiliates you to assert control, they are trying to script the story. They want to paint you as weak, as less, as someone beneath them. But here's where their plan begins to unravel. Real strength is not proven by tearing others down. Real authority is not found in public shaming. Those who rely on humiliation to establish dominance are revealing just how powerless they feel inside. They are reaching for shortcuts because they cannot earn genuine respect. The truth is, no one can truly control you unless you hand them permission. Words may sting, laughter may echo, and embarrassment may feel overwhelming, but all of it fades the moment you decide not to let it define you. The control they seek exists only in your reaction. If you collapse, they feel victorious. If you remain calm, if you refuse to bend, if you carry yourself with quiet strength, the very foundation of their strategy crumbles. Because humiliation only works when you accept it. Without your acceptance, it has no fuel. Psychologists call this power dynamic dominance behavior, an attempt to elevate oneself by suppressing another. It is common in workplaces, schools, even within families. But history has shown something remarkable. Those who endure humiliation without surrendering to it often rise far above those who attempted to control them. Why? Because control through fear is temporary, but strength through resilience is lasting. The one who humiliates may win attention for a moment, but the one who endures without breaking wins respect for a lifetime. This is why your calmness, in the face of humiliation, is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the quiet defiance that says, "You cannot own me, you cannot define me, you cannot write my story." Every time you choose dignity over reaction, every time you choose composure over collapse, you take back control. You shift the balance. And those who sought to rise by pushing you down find themselves exposed, smaller than before, revealed for what they truly are. So when humiliation comes as an attempt to dominate, do not see it as proof of their strength. See it as evidence of their weakness. Understand that no one who is truly powerful needs to humiliate another to feel important. And then remind yourself, real control belongs to you. It belongs to the one who refuses to surrender identity, dignity, or self-worth to the cruelty of another. Stand firm, lift your head, and walk forward, because the power they tried to steal is the very power that will carry you beyond them. There is a reason humiliation often finds its way into the spotlight when you begin to grow, when you begin to shine, when your presence starts to carry weight. That reason is envy. Envy is one of the oldest and most destructive human emotions. It is the silent storm that brews inside those who compare themselves to you and feel like they come up short. Instead of celebrating your progress, they resent it. Instead of drawing inspiration from your courage, they feel threatened by it. And for those who are ruled by envy, the easiest way to silence their discomfort is not to rise with you, but to try to drag you down. When envy takes hold of a person, your success becomes their mirror. Every step you take forward reminds them of the steps they never took. Every bit of light you carry exposes the shadows they've avoided. To them, your growth is not just your achievement, it is their failure. And so, they strike. They use humiliation as a weapon to dull your shine, to make you question yourself, to keep you from climbing higher. Because if you hesitate, if you shrink, if you let their words make you doubt your worth, then they no longer have to face their own lack of action. But envy disguised as humiliation is actually proof of your impact. No one envies what is irrelevant. No one wastes energy mocking what has no value. The very fact that someone targets you with ridicule is evidence that you are doing something that matters. It is evidence that you carry a spark they cannot ignore. What they call out with cruelty is often the very thing they secretly admire but cannot admit. Their attack is not a reflection of your weakness. It is a reflection of their hunger, their regret, their inability to live up to the standards they see in you. Psychologists have long understood that envy is often hidden behind hostility. People don't always say, "I wish I had what you have." Instead, they try to discredit it, to minimize it, to turn admiration into insult. And when this happens publicly, it feels like an attempt to erase you. But the truth is, their envy does not diminish your light, it only proves it exists. This is why you must never let envy-driven humiliation silence you. Because your progress is not only your victory, it is a signal to the world that growth is possible. And while some will envy and mock, others will see and be inspired. For every voice that tries to cut you down, there are silent eyes watching, learning, and gaining courage from your refusal to shrink. The one who envies you may try to make you stumble, but the one who admires you quietly is waiting for you to rise, because your rise gives them permission to rise too. So when humiliation comes wrapped in envy, see it for what it is, a distorted form of recognition. It is proof that you are visible, that you are significant, that you are moving in a direction others can't ignore. And instead of letting their envy chain you down, let it remind you that you are walking a path worth walking. Keep shining, keep climbing, keep moving forward, because the brighter your light becomes, the more envy it may stir, but also, the more lives it has the power to awaken. Sometimes humiliation isn't born out of insecurity or envy alone. Sometimes it's fueled by the hunger for approval. People humiliate others not because they believe in what they're saying, but because they want the crowd to laugh, to cheer, to side with them. It becomes less about you and more about the performance they put on to win validation from those watching. They turn your dignity into their stage, your silence into their punchline, your humanity into their ticket for attention. And while their act might draw temporary applause, what it truly reveals is emptiness, the desperate need to be noticed, even at the cost of another person's pain. This is the cruel trick of group dynamics. Humans are wired to seek belonging, to crave acceptance from the tribe. For some, that need becomes so overpowering that they will sacrifice kindness for a laugh, compassion for a moment of attention, dignity for a fleeting sense of belonging. Humiliating someone in front of others becomes the shortcut to feeling significant. And in that moment, they don't think of the wound they're carving into you. They only think of the rush of approval, the validation that distracts them from their own sense of smallness. But here is what matters. Their need for the crowd is not your weakness. It is theirs. Because anyone who requires the humiliation of another to feel accepted is building their worth on sand. Approval that comes from cruelty is shallow. Laughter that comes from someone else's pain dies quickly. What remains is not admiration but distrust. Over time, the one who humiliates for the sake of applause is remembered not for their strength, but for their cruelty. And while the crowd may laugh with them in the moment, they are also silently reminded that such a person cannot be trusted. When you understand this, the sting of being humiliated for entertainment begins to shift. It is not your character on display, but theirs. It is not your weakness being exposed, but their desperation. The need for group approval reveals something they may never admit, that they are terrified of being invisible, that without an audience, they feel like nothing, that without a laugh at someone else's expense, they are left alone with their own unspoken fears. And so, when you are made the target of this shallow kind of cruelty, you must remind yourself you do not stand beneath them. You stand above them, because it takes no courage to mock, it takes no strength to belittle, it takes no greatness to chase attention by breaking someone else. But it does take strength to endure it without losing yourself. It does take greatness to remain composed, while others try to turn you into a joke. And it does take courage to continue walking tall, even when others try to shrink you for sport. The truth is, you are not defined by the laughter of the crowd, or the cruelty of the performer. You are defined by the resilience you build, by the dignity you hold, by the refusal to let temporary applause take away your eternal worth. And while they may win the noise of the moment, you will win the silence of respect that lingers long after the echoes fade. Because when the crowd moves on and the laughter dies, what remains is character. And in that you are already untouchable. There are moments when humiliation does not come from malice, not from envy, not even from a calculated attempt to gain control. Sometimes it comes from something more subtle, something less visible but just as damaging, a lack of emotional intelligence. Some people simply do not understand the weight of their words, the gravity of their actions, or the scars they leave behind. They joke recklessly. They speak without awareness. They strike without realizing that what they consider harmless can echo in someone else's mind for years. And while it may not come from deliberate cruelty, the wound is no less real. A person without emotional intelligence cannot truly see others. They are blind to the silent battles people carry, blind to the fragile strength it takes for someone to show up, blind to the quiet dignity in hearts that are already bruised. They confuse sharpness with wit, bluntness with honesty, cruelty with confidence. But what they don't realize is that every careless word, every public jab, every dismissive laugh erodes trust, erodes connection, erodes their own humanity. When you become the target of someone like this, it is easy to believe they see you clearly. It is easy to think that their words must hold truth, because why else would they say them with such conviction? But their lack of empathy is not insight. Their insensitivity is not clarity. It is blindness. And once you understand this, you stop letting their words dictate how you see yourself. Because how can you be defined by someone who cannot even read the depth of another soul? Research in psychology has shown that emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions in ourselves and in others, is one of the most powerful predictors of true success and influence. Those who lack it may rise for a moment, but their relationships fracture, their teams collapse, their reputations fade. Why? Because people do not follow those who cannot feel. They may laugh at them, they may tolerate them, but they do not truly respect them. This is why you must never confuse the noise of humiliation with the voice of truth. Often, the person who speaks it is simply incapable of understanding the damage they cause. They are stuck at a level of growth where they cannot yet see beyond themselves. Their words reflect not your value, but their limitations. And while their lack of awareness may wound you in the moment, it also reveals something important. You are not the one who needs to change. They are. Your strength lies in refusing to let the blindness of another define the vision you hold for yourself. Instead of shrinking, let it fuel you to rise with even greater awareness, greater compassion, greater control over your own words and actions. Let their lack remind you of the power you gain by being different, by being someone who does see, who does feel, who does understand. Because in a world that often rewards noise, true greatness belongs to those who can connect deeply, who can lift others without tearing them down. So when humiliation comes from the careless lips of someone who lacks emotional intelligence, let it roll past you, not because it didn't hurt, but because it never had the authority to define you. You are not shaped by the blindness of others. You are shaped by the strength you build in seeing clearly when others cannot. And that clarity, that depth, that awareness will always set you apart from those who try to belittle what they cannot even comprehend. There is another layer to humiliation that strikes even deeper than carelessness or envy. Sometimes it comes from resentment that has been festering silently, hidden beneath forced smiles and unspoken tension. Resentment is a heavy poison. It builds over time, drop by drop, as someone collects grudges, jealousy, or unhealed wounds. They may not confront you directly, but inside they carry a storm. And when that storm grows too heavy to contain, it spills out in the form of public humiliation. Their attack is not sudden. It is the eruption of something they've been holding against you, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. When resentment fuels humiliation, it feels harsher, more targeted, more personal. This is because it often is. The person isn't simply mocking you for attention or striking you out of insecurity. They are unloading years of bitterness in one moment. And while it can cut deep, you must understand something important. Their resentment is not your responsibility. It is the weight they chose to carry. It is the bitterness they refuse to let go of. It is the wound they never healed, projected outward onto you. Psychologists have long studied the corrosive nature of resentment. It is often described as drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. Over time, the person holding resentment becomes consumed by it. They begin to interpret every action, every word, every success you achieve through the filter of their unresolved anger. And eventually, they lash out, not because of who you are in that moment, but because of what they have been feeding inside themselves for so long. You become the target of a war they've been fighting within. The danger of facing humiliation born from resentment is that it feels like an attack on your very identity, because it often comes from someone close, someone you trusted, someone you thought stood beside you. The betrayal stings as much as the words themselves. But here is the truth you must hold on to. Their resentment is proof of your impact. People do not grow bitter over those who do not matter. People do not carry years of anger towards someone insignificant. The very fact that they hold resentment toward you means your presence, your choices, your life has weight. And so, instead of drowning in their bitterness, you must rise above it. Because resentment is a prison they live in, not a chain you are meant to wear. The public humiliation they use against you is their way of releasing pressure, but it cannot define you unless you let it. What defines you is not their bitterness. It is the strength you show in refusing to return it. Your power is in choosing freedom over retaliation. While they cling to anger, you move forward with peace. While they waste their energy resenting your existence, you invest your energy in becoming more. And in the end, their resentment only weakens them, while your resilience transforms you. So when humiliation comes wrapped in the weight of someone else's long-held bitterness, do not confuse it with truth. See it for what it is, evidence of a heart too heavy with pain to carry itself with grace. Let it remind you of the life you are building, the path you are walking, the strength you are embodying. Their resentment belongs to them, not you. And your growth, your courage, your resilience, those belong only to you. Humiliation cuts so deeply because it rarely happens in silence. It happens in front of others, under the harsh light of public eyes, where every reaction is amplified and every mistake feels permanent. What wounds us most is not just the words spoken or the laughter that follows. It is the awareness that people are watching. Our brains are wired to crave belonging, to seek acceptance from the group, to avoid rejection at all costs. This instinct is ancient, rooted in survival. To be cast out from the tribe once meant danger, loneliness, even death. And so, even today, when someone humiliates us in public, our mind reacts as if our survival itself is threatened. The sting is not just embarrassment, it is the primal fear of being abandoned by those we need. This is why humiliation in public feels so unbearable. A private insult can be shaken off. A quiet disagreement can be managed. But when your dignity is stripped away in front of others, your brain magnifies the pain. It feels like the whole room is judging you, like every whisper is about you, like every glance confirms your shame. Even if most people forget the moment quickly, your mind refuses to let it go. It replays the scene again and again, exaggerating every detail, making the humiliation feel larger than life. But what you must remember is this: the crowd does not define you. The whispers do not define you. The laughter does not define you. Their memory of your humiliation is fleeting, but your response to it can be lasting, and that response is where your true power lies. Because public humiliation is not just an attack, it is a test. It is a test of whether you will surrender your identity to the noise around you, or whether you will hold your ground and show the world that dignity cannot be stolen. Psychologists have studied the fear of public embarrassment and found that it is one of the strongest social fears humans carry. But what they also found is that those who learn to face it, those who build resilience against it, often grow stronger than those who never experience it at all. Why? Because public humiliation, as painful as it feels, is also a forge. It strips away illusions, it hardens your spirit, and it teaches you to separate your self-worth from the fleeting opinions of others. And here's the truth most people miss: the crowd is not as invested as you think. They are not holding on to your moment of shame the way you are. They are too busy worrying about themselves, about their own image, about their own fears of being humiliated. The eyes that once felt like a spotlight on you will soon turn inward again, because every person is secretly more concerned about how they appear than how you appear. So the next time you feel the burn of humiliation in front of others, remind yourself, the moment will pass. The crowd will move on. What will remain is not the memory of their laughter, but the strength you gain from standing tall in the middle of it. Public humiliation may magnify the pain, but it also magnifies the opportunity. Because when you rise in public, when you refuse to be broken before the eyes of others, you send a message far louder than their laughter: that you are unshakable, that you are resilient, and that no force, no audience, no attempt to strip your dignity can take away the truth of who you are. There is a truth hidden inside every moment of humiliation, a truth most people never see because they are too focused on the pain. That truth is that humiliation, as cruel as it feels, can carry a gift. It exposes what is fragile in you. It forces you to confront the places where your identity depends too much on the opinions of others. It reveals who around you truly stands with you, and who only stands when you are strong. And though it feels like a wound, it is also a teacher. What humiliation strips away is not your worth but your illusions. And once those illusions are gone, you are left with something raw, something real, something unshakable. Think about it. If you never faced humiliation, you would never discover the depth of your resilience. If no one ever tried to break you, you would never learn just how unbreakable you are. Pain sharpens the edges of strength. Shame awakens the fight for dignity. Embarrassment becomes the soil in which courage grows. The very thing designed to tear you down can become the very thing that forces you to rise higher. Psychology tells us that growth rarely comes in comfort. Growth comes in the moments that stretch us, that wound us, that demand we rebuild ourselves stronger than before. Humiliation is one of those moments. It strips comfort away and leaves you face to face with the choice to give in and let it define you, or to rise and let it refine you. And in that choice lies the hidden gift: transformation. Humiliation teaches you to detach your worth from the fleeting noise of others. It teaches you that respect gained from approval is fragile, but respect built on self-belief is indestructible. It shows you the strength of silence, the power of composure, the dignity of walking forward, even when others hope you'll collapse. These lessons cannot be learned in safety. They can only be learned in fire. And while the fire burns, it also purifies. The gift is also clarity. Humiliation reveals the true colors of those around you. The ones who mock were never allies. The ones who laugh were never friends. The ones who stand by you, even in your lowest moment, are the ones worth keeping close. What feels like loss in the moment is actually guidance. It is the clearing away of false faces so that you can see who truly belongs in your life. Most of all, humiliation reveals to you the strength you didn't know you had, because you survived it. You may have stumbled, you may have bled inside, but you are still here, still breathing, still fighting. And that survival is proof that you are stronger than the words, stronger than the laughter, stronger than the attempt to erase you. So do not look at humiliation only as a scar. Look at it as a forge. Let it burn away what is weak, and let it harden what is strong. Let it teach you what comfort never could. Because once you realize that the pain itself carried a gift, you no longer see yourself as a victim of it. You see yourself as the one who took fire and turned it into light. And that realization, that unshakable knowing, will carry you further than the approval of 1,000 voices ever could. The greatest power you can claim in the face of humiliation is the power to remain calm, while everything in you may scream to strike back, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong in that very instant. True strength is shown in restraint. Calmness is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the ability to control what cannot be controlled on the outside by commanding what is within. When you breathe deeply, when you pause instead of reacting, when you hold yourself steady in the storm, you send a message far louder than words, that no one, no matter how loud or cruel, can shake the core of who you are. This calmness disarms those who try to humiliate you. Their goal is not just to mock you, it is to control your reaction. They want you flustered, angry, broken. They want to point and say, "See, I was right." But when you remain composed, when you refuse to let their cruelty dictate your behavior, you take away the very outcome they sought. The laughter fades, the mockery loses energy, and the crowd begins to see not your shame, but your strength. Psychologists call this emotional regulation, and it is one of the most powerful tools you can develop. It means choosing your response instead of being controlled by impulse. It means creating space between what happens to you and how you decide to act. And in that space lies freedom. The freedom to remain dignified even when others hope to strip you of dignity. Remaining calm also rewires the story your mind tells itself. Instead of reliving the moment as one where you lost control, you remember it as one where you stood tall. Instead of humiliation becoming a wound, it becomes a victory. Every time you resist the urge to lash out, you strengthen the part of yourself that refuses to be broken. And over time, this becomes second nature. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once shook you becomes powerless. The calmness you carry in those moments is not just for you, it impacts everyone watching. There are always silent observers, people who see how you handle yourself. And while the one who humiliates may think they have won the crowd, what the crowd often remembers is not the words that were spoken, but the way you carried yourself. They remember the dignity, the composure, the quiet strength. And that is where true respect is born. This does not mean you suppress your feelings or pretend you are unaffected. It means you choose when and how to respond. You recognize that your emotions are real, but you refuse to let them be controlled by someone else's cruelty. You remind yourself that you cannot control what others do, but you can always control what you do. That is power no one can take. So when the sting of humiliation comes, breathe. Hold steady. Let silence be your shield. Let calmness be your defiance. Because the one who humiliates hopes to see you crumble, but when you remain centered, you rise above them. And in that moment, you prove something unshakable, that your worth, your dignity, your identity are not at the mercy of anyone's words. They are yours to protect, yours to embody, yours to carry forward with unbreakable strength. There is a kind of strength that is not built in the spotlight but in silence, in the unseen places where you decide who you are and what you stand for. Humiliation can feel like an attack on that identity, as if someone has tried to erase your sense of self with a single careless word. But here lies the truth. No one can take from you what you refuse to surrender. Your worth is not up for negotiation. and it is not dependent on anyone's recognition. It lives within you, steady and unshakable, waiting for you to claim it fully. When you are humiliated, the instinct is to search outward for validation, to look for someone to say, "You're still good enough, you're still worthy." But this is where most people remain trapped. They continue to rely on others to repair the damage others have caused, and in doing so, they hand over their power twice, once to those who humiliated them, and again to those they seek approval from. Breakthrough comes when you realize you no longer need anyone to confirm your value. You can decide right here that your worth is already complete, already whole, already untouchable. This inner certainty is what psychologists call self-concept clarity. It is the understanding that who you are is not fragile, not easily rewritten, not dependent on the moment. When you strengthen this clarity, you stop being shaken by every insult or judgment. You no longer bend under pressure, because you know your foundation. Humiliation, instead of destroying you, only exposes the strength of that foundation. The deeper your roots in self-worth, the less any storm can move you. And here is the power most people overlook. The one who humiliates you is not writing your story. You are. Their words are temporary, but your response can echo for years. If you choose bitterness, their moment continues to control you long after it has passed. But if you choose dignity, if you choose to affirm who you are without shrinking, then their attempt to shame you becomes the very stage on which your strength is revealed. Their cruelty becomes the backdrop against which your light shines brighter. It is not about pretending their actions did not hurt. It is about refusing to let the hurt define you. Pain is real, but so is resilience. Shame is heavy, but so is courage. You are not weak because you felt the sting. You are human. What matters is what you do after the sting. Will you let it shape you into someone who doubts themselves, or will you let it refine you into someone unshakably grounded? Every moment of humiliation can become a mirror. You can either see the reflection of your fears, or you can see the reflection of your strength. You get to choose what you see. And when you choose to see strength, you grow stronger. When you choose to see dignity, you rise higher. When you choose to see resilience, you carry yourself with a presence that no insult can diminish. So hold on to this truth. No matter what anyone says, your worth remains untouchable. The laughter fades, the crowd moves on, but your identity remains. And when you decide to stand firm in that identity, humiliation no longer has the power to break you. It becomes the moment that revealed just how unbreakable you already are. The ones who try to humiliate you hope to trap you in their frame. They want you to see yourself through their eyes, to believe that their opinion is the ultimate truth. But every time you accept their judgment as reality, you shrink your own power. You let their limitations define your possibilities. The truth is, humiliation only works when you agree with it, when you secretly wonder if maybe they are right. The instant you stop granting their words authority over your identity, their weapon becomes useless. What they throw at you falls to the ground, powerless, because you no longer carry it inside. This is the essence of psychological freedom. It is not about controlling what others say or do. It is about removing their control over what you believe about yourself. Once you stop internalizing their poison, you begin to rise above it. And this rising is not loud or desperate. It is quiet. It is steady. It is unshakable. You look in the mirror and decide for yourself who you are. You write your own definition. You become the authority of your life. Humiliation often thrives on silence, but not the silence of calm strength, the silence of unspoken agreement. When someone mocks you, when the crowd laughs and you secretly believe they are right, that silence becomes a wound. But when your silence is rooted in certainty, in the knowledge that their words do not even touch your truth, it transforms from a wound into a weapon. You no longer need to defend, because you know you do not need to. That kind of silence is louder than any insult. And here is where transformation begins, when you stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and start asking, "What part of me believes them?" Because humiliation does not live in their words. It lives in the part of you that doubts yourself. Heal that doubt, and the power of humiliation dissolves. Strengthen that inner certainty, and what once tore you apart now glances off you like rain on stone. You may not control their behavior, but you control what you carry away from it. If you choose to carry their words, you weigh yourself down. If you choose to let them fall, you walk forward lighter, freer, stronger. And every time you choose release, you train your mind to resist the chains of shame. Slowly, their opinions lose grip, until one day you realize they hold no weight at all. And that realization is the breakthrough. To understand that the person trying to humiliate you is not your master, not your judge, not your truth. They are simply revealing themselves, their insecurity, their fear, their own struggle. And you are revealing yours too. You reveal either your doubt or your strength, and you always have the power to choose strength. So decide now. Decide that no voice outside you is louder than the voice within you. Decide that their attempt to drag you down only pushes you to stand taller. Decide that humiliation will never again define you, because you have already defined yourself. And when you do, you rise into a space where no insult can reach, no laughter can wound, no mockery can touch. You rise into the freedom of knowing who you are. And nothing is more powerful than that. When someone tries to tear you down in front of others, what they truly crave is control over your state of mind. They want to dictate how you feel about yourself, to spark shame, anger, or self-doubt that weakens you from within. But once you recognize this, you hold the advantage, because you see the game clearly. Their weapon only works if you hand them permission to shape your emotions. The instant you refuse that permission, you take back the power they were so desperate to steal. Think about the energy that humiliation carries. It is meant to trap you in the past, to freeze you in a moment of weakness, to replay the insult again and again until it feels like part of your identity. But you are not a moment. You are not a single word spoken in anger or cruelty. You are an unfolding story, and no one else has the right to write its meaning for you. Every time you allow someone's attack to dictate how you see yourself, you abandon your authorship. The key is to reclaim the pen, to remind yourself that your worth was never up for debate. Humiliation feeds on reaction. When you lash out, when you collapse, when you show them that they hit a nerve, you give them confirmation that their strategy worked. But when you stand rooted, when your presence communicates calm strength, you rob them of their victory. You turn their performance into silence. You leave them grasping for the power they thought they had, only to realize it never truly existed. That moment, when you remain untouchable, becomes the deepest humiliation for them, not for you. The most powerful defense is not loud. It is not fueled by rage or a desperate need to prove your worth. The most powerful defense is inner certainty. Certainty does not need to explain itself. Certainty does not beg for approval. Certainty does not flinch when challenged. And you can build this certainty piece by piece every single day by reminding yourself that worth is not something that can be handed to you or taken away. Worth is what you decide you are. The crowd may laugh, the person may smirk, the moment may sting. But moments pass. What stays is the way you choose to interpret them. Will you let those few seconds live in your mind for years, replaying on a loop like chains you cannot escape? Or will you choose to break the loop, to release the memory, to rise into the next chapter without carrying their shadow on your back? You decide. And that decision is the dividing line between those who remain trapped in cycles of shame and those who rise into unstoppable freedom. This is not about pretending insults don't hurt. You are human, and words can sting. But pain is not permanent. Pain is only a signal. It tells you where you need to grow, where your belief in yourself needs to strengthen, where your armor has cracks. Instead of letting humiliation define you, let it teach you. Let it point to the exact places where you must build resilience. And once you strengthen those places, what once pierced you will no longer touch you. And here lies the true transformation. Every attempt to humiliate you can either be the weight that crushes you or the weight that builds your strength. Every insult can either be a scar or a lesson. Every moment of shame can either be the end of your story or the spark that begins your rise. The power is yours, always yours. And when you finally realize that, humiliation loses its grip forever. What if every time someone tried to embarrass you, you saw it as proof of your strength instead of evidence of your weakness? What if instead of shrinking, you expanded? What if instead of feeling small, you stood taller? This is the shift that turns humiliation into empowerment. Because the truth is, people don't try to humiliate those who are insignificant. They target the ones who are noticed, the ones who disturb the comfort of mediocrity, the ones who carry a presence that others cannot ignore. If someone feels the need to drag you down in front of others, it means you have already risen high enough to be seen. There is a reason why some people spend their energy attacking instead of building. They are intimidated by what you represent. You mirror back to them the courage they lack. You expose the insecurities they try to bury, your very existence, your light, your growth, your voice. These things unsettle the fragile balance they cling to, and instead of working on themselves, they choose the easier route to throw stones at you. But stones thrown at you can become the foundation beneath you. Every insult can become a brick you step on as you climb higher. Imagine the shift in power when you realize that their attempt to humiliate you is not proof of your inferiority, but confirmation of your influence. They would not waste their energy if you were irrelevant. They would not gather the courage to attack if you did not trigger something powerful inside them. Their actions reveal more about their state of mind than about your worth. The moment you see that, the wound closes, the sting fades, and in its place rises clarity. Clarity that you were never defined by their words. Clarity that your value does not shrink under someone else's opinion. Clarity that your energy is too precious to waste on resentment and too powerful to be controlled by mockery. The goal is not to outshout them, not to prove them wrong, not to win the crowd. The goal is to rise so steadily, so unapologetically, so firmly in your truth that nothing outside of you can decide who you are. Humiliation loses its grip when you stop fighting it and start transforming it. Because humiliation is only energy, negative energy projected onto you, and energy can be redirected. You can turn their attack into fuel. You can turn their laughter into motivation. You can turn their attempt to break you into proof that you are unbreakable. Every time you rise after being pushed, you build strength that cannot be faked, a depth that cannot be shaken, a presence that cannot be denied. The most dangerous thing about humiliation is not the event itself. It is the story you attach to it. If you tell yourself, this means I'm not good enough, the wound grows deeper. If you tell yourself, this means I don't belong, you surrender your future. But if you tell yourself, this means I'm strong enough to be targeted because I matter, the power returns to your hands. Suddenly, their attempt to shame you becomes the evidence that you are significant. And this is where the transformation becomes unstoppable. You stop fearing embarrassment, you stop fearing judgment, you stop fearing being misunderstood. Because you see every attempt to humiliate you as a sign that you are alive, visible, and unafraid to take space in a world that often asks people to stay small. When humiliation no longer scares you, you become limitless. And those who once tried to break you are forced to watch as you rise beyond reach, fueled by the very energy they thought would destroy you.